Time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us tonight are the Mirror's John Cross and Jack Rosser from The Sun. Welcome to you both. Let's quickly run everyone through the back pages then, starting with the Mail, which says, "Get it done." That's from Pep, and joy for Jamie. Jamie Smith's 100. As for front of the Telegraph, Guardiola, "I want City case sorted." England doing it the hard way. The picture of a drop catch there at the front of the Times. Smith's day to remember. Bellingham blow for Carsley. And Guardiola, "We want trial to be over as soon as possible." As for John's paper, the Mirror, gun deals in reference to Ilkay Gundogan going back to Manchester City. Back of the Express, 1.2 billion and counting. That is Chelsea's spending spree. Jamie's dream ton. Jude out in blow for Lions. And then finally on the back of the Star, the one we teased, Sancho go is the art of the deal. In reference to Mikel Arteta's contract extension that is likely. Ilkay has to find a way, and Arne is doing it his way. Arne Slot, of course. But we are going to start, gentlemen, in the back of the Mail. Just going to hear the back. I'm just trying to work it. Who we can hear from? We can hear from Pep Guardiola on those charges. Let's hear from him now.
Yeah, I hear that I'm happy to start soon and hopefully finish soon. For the benefit for all of us, especially for the club, but for all the other Premier League clubs, like for all the people that don't wait the sentence. So I wish the deep of my heart and go to the trail, the independent panel, and I said again, independent panel, and as soon as possible release what happened, and we will accept like always we have done.
Are you concerned it could affect your players' performances?
Well, we are in 3-4 years talking about that. So.
But now it's coming to a head, I mean, so now
but
it's
that's good.
real.
I know it's going to happen.
OK, so good to hear from Pep then. John, he wants this done as quickly as possible, but there are the small matter of 115 charges. This is not going to be done anytime soon.
No, 115 charges, and then also City's own sort of legal case, you know, sort of challenging it as well. I do actually really respect what Guardiola is saying here, because I have to say, as fans of other clubs particularly sort of challenging Manchester City, what is this season about? You know, where do we stand? You know, can we believe everything that we see in front of us? You know, is it really any point in kind of trying to win games? And you know, what does a result against Man City mean? The sooner we have these charges dealt with, the better. And I do think Guardiola there was clearly on the front foot. The one thing that really interested me there, David, was him saying that we will accept any decision. I mean, it's clear that City throughout this have always protested their innocence and said we've done nothing wrong. We'll clear our name and reputation through the courts and through hearings. And yet he is saying very clearly there, and you know, you could read it in the quotes in sort of various newspapers on the front pages of their sport pullouts or the back pages, if you like, really just sort of saying, look, we'll accept whatever happens. So, you know, as we've always done, which, you know, look, I think the sooner the better, because honestly, I think this has got the potential to, I think, disrupt and potentially spoil the whole season. So the sooner we know, the better, really, for absolutely everybody concerned. It's already dragged on far, far too long. And the sooner it's dealt with, I think, the better for the Premier League and English football, I think.
Jack, your take on this, and just to pick up on John's point, the Pep Guardiola, we will accept any decision. I guess if they find against them, they'll also, though, be thinking about an appeal, won't they?
Yeah, exactly the point John made, really. That was the thing that really jumped out. Guardiola's right. Obviously, I think everyone wants it wrapped up as soon as possible. Anyone you talk to about it just sort of says, when are they going to clamp down on them? When are they going to conclude this, really? Because it's almost seemed so far like the Premier League have been picking on the smaller clubs in Everton and Forest. Obviously, they're far less complicated cases, far fewer charges. But this thing about accepting it, I think 35 of the charges are for a failure to comply with investigations at different points. So that's hardly accepting things just as they go along and working with them. City have always been very bullish in fighting against it. So you'd imagine that charge wouldn't that stance, wouldn't change if the Premier League or the independent panel, were to find against them and we were to move to an appeal, because that is the way you see it going, really. If City are found guilty, they've been so bullish and so on the front foot in defending themselves and insisting they've got hordes of evidence that clears them and clears their name and shows there was no wrongdoing, that would be the only course of action for them. Really, I think there's still some confidence that even if there was to be an appeal, it wouldn't drag on beyond the end of the season, because no one at any club or the Premier League wants another year where the table is dominated by asterisks. Really, it ruins what has been such a successful product and league, and people really don't want that to be the distraction all season, even though it will probably be the biggest talking point all season.
Okay, staying with Manchester City and your paper, John, which says gun deals. Ilkay returns to City, but Pep warns you won't walk into the side. I can see by the smile on your face that you like this story. Ilkay Gundogan returning. They say never go back, but this looks like a good bit of business.
I think it's fantastic business. I do think this has got the potential, and I'm not sure it isn't already, to be honest, the best deal within this transfer window. I love Ilkay Gundogan. I think he's a fabulous player. What a player he was for City, in so much of their success, of course, under Guardiola. Goals, assists, leadership, captaincy, brilliance. I mean, what a player. What a fantastic player. He actually had a really good season at Barcelona, which this isn't a mistake. It's purely and simply down to finances and the actual, really strict rules in Spain about their financial controls. So they had to let one go, and he was the fit one available out. And City must be laughing about this one, because honestly, they're signing a player of that quality, of that experience, of that class, on a free transfer for a 1+1 year deal. I think it's absolutely brilliant business. He will already, City, I think, already daunting. I think they're already scaring the rest of the Premier League, and he will make the rest even more concerned. Honestly, Arsenal will be rolling their eyes. Liverpool will be thinking, oh no, what have we done to deserve this? Because that's the quality that Gundogan brings. And I do think, honestly, he's fantastic. He's mature enough. He has a strong enough relationship with Guardiola to come straight back in. And yes, I like the headline, he won't walk straight back in. But come on, who are we kidding? As long as he's fit, as long as he's ready, I'm sorry, but he walks straight back in. He's a fantastic player. He's a great player and a great signing for City. The best signing in the window.
OK, great bit of business then. I think we'd all agree that, Jack. But do City have enough? I mean, they have an embarrassment of riches, but they have lost Julian Alvarez and they haven't kind of replaced him like for like. Do they need to do more business, City, or is the Gundogan, is that them done and dusted?
I'm not sure, really. I think that they'll always move to do something if something brilliant like Gundogan comes up. Nobody would have seen that coming at the start of the window, him coming back, really. But I think if you asked City fans, they'd be happier with just having him back than bringing anyone else in. I mean, in terms of Alvarez, they've lost a very talented player and someone who did very well when he came in when Haaland wasn't available. But Guardiola and City have shown across a number of years that they don't really need that big number 9 to be successful and sweep everyone aside. So, of course, it'd be lovely for them to have 2 brilliant number 9s that they could rely on through the whole season. But I don't really think it's a necessity. Gundogan is such a impactful player and brings goals from midfield, and that is something that they've been very good at, sharing those goals around if Haaland isn't quite there, which he normally is. So they don't have to worry about it too much. Savinho looked fantastic on his debut at Chelsea, but causing a lot of problems for Chelsea. So I think City fans and Guardiola will be quite happy with where they are. They've always, of course, got the power to go and do something special in the last week, but they never seem to rush to things too much.
Yeah, John, you referenced Arsenal and the likes of Arteta rolling their eyes at that Gundogan deal. Also in your paper, Arteta ready to sign new Arsenal contract and says, don't panic, we're on it. Is this the most important bit of business for Arsenal to get their manager tied up?
A huge one. I think he's arguably the most exciting young coach around, and he's obviously out of contract next summer, so he's got less than a year to go. Look, I think they've been having conversations for a while, if I'm brutally honest. I mean, the relationships are so good internally. I do think that Arsenal fans will be thinking, why has it lasted so long? So Arteta quick to sort of say, look, no need to panic, we're going to get it done. Listen, Arteta as a player was absolutely legendary, let me tell you, for he's been a really hard negotiator, really tough, really sort of making sure that every deal was right for him, sort of pushing out and sort of kind of really wanting to sort of drive a hard bargain. So imagine what he's like as a manager. And now that his sort of kind of his stock has grown as well and sort of been incredibly successful for Arsenal. So I think he knows he's holding all the aces. So I'm sure he can push it, making sure that, he's got the full support, which obviously he has, but everything is ready there for, Arteta to sign and perhaps build a long-term dynasty and really successful time. It's an incredibly exciting time, I think, for Arsenal and Arteta. And, the sooner he signs that, the better. I'm sure it's imminent, to be honest with you.
Yeah, next up for Arsenal, Jack, is the Aston Villa match. It's on Saturday Night Football, live on Sky Sports, of course. Jamie Carragher, in the inside of the Telegraph, in his column, says Arsenal must be perfect, so dare not slip up at Villa, referencing the fact that they dropped 6 points to them in the league last year, and that's ultimately what cost them the league.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible to be talking about it this early in the season, really. But as Jamie Carragher points out in his column, and as we've just been discussing, really, that is the standard that Manchester City have set everyone in recent years. If you want to go for them, you have to be almost faultless across an entire season. There's no sort of get the first 10 games out of the way and see where you are and settle in, or get past a couple of international breaks. You've really got to be on it, and the pressure is on almost every fixture now. And Arsenal will want to go back to Aston Villa and have a point to prove almost. I remember at the start of the game they went there to Villa Park last year, I think they played Arsenal and City in the same week, and Villa were talking about, well, we're going to try and beat them both. And everyone sort of chuckled and thought, okay, this is probably where it falls apart a bit. But they were incredible and obviously beat Arsenal home and away. And it was just the 2 points, like Jamie says in his column, win one of those games and Arsenal would have been champions. So that is the sort of fine margins you're dealing with. Arsenal are clearly a better side than Aston Villa. They showed that across the whole of last season. But it's an incredibly difficult place to go. It has been a difficult place to go for a long time. But Unai Emery has taken that up a notch. They're obviously playing against a former manager as well. So it's a great fixture to have so early in the season. And despite it being just the second weekend, it's already a test of Arsenal's mettle and whether Arteta has driven them forward that slight bit once more.
Great stuff, Jack. John, we're going to leave it there for now. Thank you. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at more of the back pages, including this in the Express. 1.2 billion and counting. Moresa hints madcap spree is not over yet. Stay with us. You're watching Back Pages tonight, and welcome back to the Mirror's John Cross and Jack Rosser from The Sun. Right, let's go straight to the Express then. 1.2 billion and counting. And Jack, you've seen quite a lot of Chelsea. You've been covering Chelsea, I understand, quite a bit recently. Moresa hinting that the madcap spree is not over yet. Lukaku out, Osimhen in. Looks like a good bit of business, if they can do it.
Yeah, it's still a little bit of way to go. I think it seems like the Lukaku deal is pretty much tied up, and that's a huge thing that Chelsea have needed to get off the books for a while, really. They've obviously got so many players that they need to clear out in this week, sort of 10, upwards of 10 to 13 of them that they would like to try and move on in the final week of the window. But Lukaku was a key one, on some serious money and hasn't contributed at Chelsea for a long time, been away on loan for the last 2 seasons. Whether it's Osimhen that comes in we're yet to see. There's a lot of interest in him. Saudi Arabia has been there in the background all summer, and as of Paris Saint-Germain. So whether Chelsea get that one over the line, we'll have to wait and see. Frankly, it seems quite ridiculous that they're trying to add yet another striker. It's a gap that they see they need to fill. But Nicholas Jackson did have a good season really last year, considering the return and how hard it's been for strikers to establish themselves at Chelsea over the years. But I suppose this is what we've come to expect from them over the summer. The squad is so bloated. I mean, I spent time on their tour, and Moresa did well to keep things calm, made a good impression, especially considering some of the results weren't going the way he would have liked, and the players obviously getting to grips with a drastic change in playing style. But at times you sort of struggle to recognise who the players were if you were in and around the hotel. There's so many of them coming and going, and so many different faces. So yeah, it's going to be a chaotic end to the transfer window at Chelsea, and a lot of unhappy players there, really, with the way a lot of them have been treated. I don't think Lukaku fits into that category, but you've obviously got the futures of Raheem Sterling and Ben Chilwell and Trevor Chalobah to be solved, and there's a lot of ill feeling there, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, John, what do you make of everything that's going on at Chelsea? And what does a good season look like for them?
Well, I do think that he's been clear, isn't he, Moresa, saying that basically I'm not under pressure to reach the Champions League places, whatever that might look like, whether that's top 4 or top 5. But come on, we hear this every summer, don't we, from a Chelsea manager? And as we sort of kind of go along, by about March, if they're not in contention, the pressure ramps up. Come on, you cannot spend £1.2 billion. And yes, I know there's been a lot of ins and outs, and not be expected to be pushing for the top 5, which is what effectively it might take to get in the Champions League. That would be utterly ridiculous. And I do think it still goes back to the fact that, you know, look at the squad. I did the Chelsea City game on Sunday, and frankly, they've still got a striker who, for me, just doesn't look across the line. And basically, Jackson, if he could stay on side, he would have equalised and Chelsea get a point. And so you can see why they're still interested in Osimhen. And here we are, you know, still being sort of lulled into this kind of false sense of security about Chelsea. You know, they need another one in, because that's what every fan thinks, doesn't it, really? And basically, if they can get Osimhen, I still think they're up against it, as Jack says. You know, there's so much work to be done on getting that one over the line and balancing the books. You cannot keep on signing players and not offloading. Then I think it will be a game changer. And I do think that, you know, Chelsea fans will be delighted. And this week they kind of almost forget about it in a way, even though the departures of Gallagher, you know, potential departures of Sterling and Chilwell, you know, look ugly. And why do you need to kind of, you know, sort of put up Pedro Neto's shirt as they did yesterday to sort of say that he's taking off Sterling? Why? You know, everyone knows that basically Sterling's, you know, being sort of moved on and so on. But do it with some, you know, style and grace. You just don't need to go that extra yard to rub his nose in it. It just looks ugly. And I do think that, you know, on many levels they've handled it badly. But at the end of it, they have spent so much money that the expectation levels, in my mind, is that Moresa has to be in that top 5 and in the Champions League places. And I think they've still got a lot of business to do. I would be amazed if they could offload as many players as they want to and bring in who they want, because we are running out of time. And I think it'll be a messy season, I'm afraid, for Chelsea. And I think it'll be one that Moresa will struggle to contain.
OK, so Chelsea looking to offload. Manchester United also might be offloading because at the back of the start, Jack, Sancho go. Looks like Erik ten Hag and Jadon Sancho buried the hatchet, but it looks like he still might get his move. Juve ready to pounce.
Yeah, it's obviously been a difficult summer for Jadon Sancho, really. He managed to get out and get back to Borussia Dortmund, and I think the ideal situation for him would have been that he'd managed to secure a permanent move back to Germany, but they obviously didn't have the finances there. And then I suppose you look at coming back to Manchester United, and the assumption at the end of last season would have been that Erik ten Hag was probably going to be replaced and Jadon Sancho would get a fresh start under a new manager. That's obviously not happened. It's a huge investment that United have made in Sancho, and one that really hasn't worked. And, you know, they may have patched things up over the summer, but that's always going to be something that's lingering there. And as it is always the case at Manchester United, ready to explode into something bigger again. So it is probably best for all the parties that they manage to find a solution to this. You hope it's somewhere that Jadon Sancho can go, play regularly, be fit and at the peak of his powers again. He ended the season really well with Borussia Dortmund. I remember being at the Champions League semi-final and watching him sort of outshine Messi, outshine Kylian Mbappe even at Paris Saint-Germain, and have a really encouraging, impressive end to the season. He was even mentioned a couple of times for a potential late run into the England squad, and that's something he'll have in his mind going ahead. You know, there's 2 years out now into the major tournament, and he'll want to have a couple of seasons under his belt playing, you know, at his best regularly to really try and force that and become the player everyone knows he can be. So if he feels like away from Manchester United is the best place for that to happen, then you really hope that the move gets across the line for him, really. OK, let's focus then on Jude Bellingham because he's
injured, John, and the back of the Sun says Carsley's Jude KO. Looks like he's going to miss England's next couple of fixtures, and I guess, was this a kind of injury waiting to happen, given the amount of football that Jude Bellingham's played over the last 12 or so months?
54 games last season, which ended, just a matter of weeks ago with that Euros final. Honestly, for a player who's still, in the infancy of his career, I also think that, imagine the emotional toll that it takes on him, the season that he had. I mean, he was absolutely phenomenal. No player goes to Real Madrid and dominates like he did at such a young age. Absolutely phenomenal first season at the Bernabeu. He's going to be a Ballon d'Or winner for many years to come, in my view, and also just went and had such a long time sort of with England in the Euros. I mean, listen, it didn't take a genius to work out why a few players couldn't reach their absolute peak. It's because they played so many games. And, he's sort of said on social media, isn't he, Jude Bellingham, that maybe actually this is telling me that I do need something of a rest. Listen, I think on the flip side, it's a blow for Lee Carsley, because Carsley, there's no doubt in my mind that if Lee Carsley does well in these 6 Nations League games, it's his job to lose. So he'll want as strong a team as possible to make as good an impression as possible. And Jude Bellingham remains England's best player. So a big blow.
Yeah, we'll get to the England manager situation and for another show, John. That could take a while. And we're running out of time, actually. But, Jack, just quickly, the front of the Times, Smith's day to remember. Quick focus on the Test match up at Old Trafford, because Jamie Smith preferred to Ben Stokes at the beginning of this series, and he showed why pretty much through the West Indies series, but he eventually got his 100 at Old Trafford.
Yeah, well, I mean, a fantastic moment for him, really. He looks a real talent, and really nice to go out and do it and getting such high praise for doing it as well. Made a real impact, and to get your maiden Test century in just your 4th match is something quite incredible, really. I mean, England will be a bit frustrated by the sort of lull in the middle of the day, I suppose, and then Mark Wood having to be brought off is a bit of a concern with Ben Stokes, having just come back into the bowling attack in the last few tests and then having to drop out again. It's not great, but overall a positive day to England to see some new faces having their big moment.
OK, Jack, we're going to have to leave it there. Jack, John, thank you very much. If you missed any other show, there's another chance to see Back Pages tonight at hour. The show also available as a podcast. Just download Back Pages on Apple and Spotify where you get your podcasts. Welcome to Back Pages, bringing you everything you need to know about the biggest sports stories making the headlines in the morning's newspapers. I'm Dave Fulton, and joining us on the Mirror's John Cross and Jack Rosser from The Sun. Welcome to you both.